Alright guys, so we have a benchmark coming up on Tuesday. We're going to do this reviewing class on Monday, but I'm going to try and put this up here on Sunday for those of you that might want to get a little head start on it and get going. So we'll look here at page 1. It says construct point D on segment AC, a line parallel to AB, and the intersection E of the parallel line with BC. So a lot going on there, but if you take it and kind of break it down, you're going to construct point D on AC. So on AC, there's going to be a point D. And it's going to be parallel to AB and the intersection of E, parallel with BC. So what they're really asking you to do is to make a point D somewhere on AC and a point E somewhere on BC, so that you make a segment right there that's parallel with AB. Okay, again, I know there's a lot going on. The wording's kind of crazy. So this goes back to our similarity section, and basically when you have a triangle with a, doesn't have to necessarily be a mid-segment, but a third line parallel within it, what you need to remember is that this piece and this piece, or these segments, will be congruent, not congruent, I'm sorry, similar to this BE over EC. Okay, so if we look at what we have AD over EC for A, no. We have AD over DC, yes. BE over EC, that's the one we're going for. Right, the other ones don't make sense with what we're doing. AD over AB, we're not looking at AB, and BE over AD might have worked, but then it involves DE, which makes no sense. So it is C. Number 2, from the top of a 120-foot high tower, an air traffic controller observes an airplane on the runway at an angle of depression of 19 degrees. How far from the base of the tower is the airplane? So we are going to have a lot of trig, or several trig problems on this. If you look here, there's that angle of depression. We did a lot of this back in trig. And this picture is a good representation to remind you that the angle does not start inside the triangle usually. That 19 degrees is just below that line of sight. And again, there's a couple ways we can work with it. We can put the 19 down here, because remember, if you make that a rectangle, that's kind of messy. Then you would have alternate interior angles at play there. So that would be 19 right there. You could also do 90 minus 19, which is 71, and put it right there. You can use either one. I'm going to do this from the 19 on the opposite side. So 120 is opposite. You're looking for this, which is adjacent. Opposite over adjacent is tangent. So you're going to get tangent 19 equals the opposite 120 over x. And if we remember, when we have the x in the bottom of our fraction, you want to multiply the x to both sides and then divide. So what this is going to wind up as is x equals 120 over tangent 19, and if you put that into your calculator, x is approximately 348.51. One advantage to the benchmark, don't forget, it is all multiple choice, so you will have the ability to kind of check the answers too. Some of this review is not like that, but do remember you will have that for the benchmark. Let me get that out of the way for the next problem. Number 3, a boat is 200 meters from a cliff. If the angle of depression from the top of the cliff to the boat is 45 degrees, how far is the boat from the top of the cliff? So it's pretty much the exact same setup, but they wanted you to now draw your own. So you have, again, your angle of your line of sight, and it says the angle of depression is 45 degrees. This pen's not working that well. Now, it says how, well, the how is missing. It should say how far is the boat from the top of the cliff. The direct length from the boat to the top of the cliff is that line. So that is going to be X. Now, you can put a 45 there, you can put a 45 there, because 90 minus 45 is 45. Even though not drawn to scale, this is a 45, 45, 90 right triangle. So if you remember that, let's do this with special rights, because that's also on the table here. You have x square root of 2 for that pattern, and obviously x is 2,000. So if you remember that, this is simply x is 2,000 square root of 2. If you don't remember that, though, you're going to have to do some trig, and we'll go to blue for that. You have adjacent, you have hypotenuse, that's cosine. Cosine of 40 degrees equals 2,000 over x. On something like the benchmark, I would suspect they would generally never give you the easy setup to any problem. So, I mean, I could be wrong, but expect the x to be in the bottom of the fraction majority of the time. But just like the previous problem, they're going to switch places. X will equal 2,000 divided by the cosine of 45. Y'all can see that there. And give me a second to calculate that. And that is going to be 2,828.43. And again, it really depends. These are the same answers, just obviously one's the decimal, one's the square root. And, it just depends on the answer choices in each problem. Don't forget, if they give you answer choices like what's in red here, and you don't know how to get there from doing trig or whatever, multiply this out. 2,000 times the square root of 2 should give you the 2,828. Okay, don't forget, you can always check answers like that on here. I'm going to clear some of this mess off the screen here for a moment. All right. Last problem for this page, number 5. In a stained glass window, each colored panel of glass is separated by a metal strip. The window itself is also surrounded by metal strips. Haley is making a square stained glass window as shown. Which of these represents a total length? So everything's metal, right? You have the square around the frame, if you will, is metal, as are the strips. So there's really a few ways you could approach this problem. Looking at your answer choices, though, because this one is a multiple choice here on the review, here's the way I think we should look at this. First off, it's obviously square, so all sides are 30, and it's 30 times 4, which is, of course, 120. So the frame itself is 120, and if you look at your answer choices, they all have a 120 except for A, so we'll count that one out. Now, you have these little squares, and you'll notice the 45 here, that's 45. They're all special right triangles. There's 4 45, 45, 90 right triangles in there. And that pattern is x square root of 2. So given that you have 30 as a hypotenuse, which would normally go right here, we would look to solve x times the square root of 2 equals 30. I guess we can go through this process again real quick. You remember how we do this. It takes a little bit of steps, but you're dividing by the square root of 2. Can't leave the answer like that, so it's times square root of 2 over square root of 2. You get 30 square root of 2 over square root of 4. Square root of 4 on the bottom becomes a positive 2 on the top. 30 square root of 2, which when you divide 30 by 2 is 15 square root of 2. Now, on the picture, that represents one side. There's 4 total sides. So it's that times 4. 15 times 4 is 60 square root of 2. Now remember, we have that 120 for the perimeter plus this for the inside diagonal pieces, you have 120 plus 60 square root of 2, which is E. You'll have a formula chart. You'll have multiple choice. You'll have some things to work with. All right, here's page 1 down, and we'll move on to page 2 on the next video.